Today, we are going to look at the introduction of the story, The Gulistan of Saddi by Sheikh Saddi. As the title shows, Gulistan means a garden of flowers. So these stories, they have flowers of wisdom given by Saddi for all the mankind. Saddi Shirazi, he was one of the major Persian poets of the medieval period. He is not only famous in Persian-speaking countries, but he has also been quoted in Western literature. He is recognized for the quality of his writing and the depth of his social and moral thoughts. His best-known works are the Bostan and Gulistan. Gulistan is mainly prose and it contains stories and personal narratives. Saddi, he was a great storyteller. He demonstrated deep awareness of the absurdity of human existence. He tells us stories about kings, dervish, and people who are dependent upon them. Now, the one who has translated these stories, Ralph Waldo Emerson, he was also a keen fan of Saddi's writings. He compared his writings to the Bible in terms of its wisdom and the beauty of its narrative. Edwin Arnold has aptly described Gulistan in these terms as an intellectual pilaf, a literary curry, a kebab of the versatile genius, like he has compared his stories to the most tastiest of foods. The Gulistan, it's the landmark of Persian literature. It was written in 1259 and it is one of his most popular books, and it has given deep influence to the West as well as to the East. It is a collection of poems and short stories, such as A Rose Garden is a collection of roses. It is widely quoted as a source of great wisdom. These stories, they are expressed with precise language and psychological insight, creating a poetry or a rainbow of ideas. These stories, they deal with major issues faced by the mankind with optimism and satire. There is advice for people, there is advice for rulers, there is entertainment, there is practical value and moral dimensions. They also focus on the conduct of the holy men, also known as dervish. The world honors Saddi, as these lines by him, they are written on the entrance of united organizations. Human beings are members of a whole, in creation of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, other members uneasy will remain. If you have no sympathy for human pain, the name of human you cannot retain. Saddi is basically a moralist. He deals with various subjects, from the manners of the king to the rulers for conduct in lives. He says that the morals and virtues of the kings, they affect their people a lot. The more unjust the king is, the more troubled his country will be, and the prosperity of the people is dependent upon the virtues of the ruler. We are going to look at the summary and the moral lessons which we learn from the first tale by Saddi. In the first story, Saddi tells us that once a king was sailing in a boat with his attendants. One of the slaves, he had never been at sea and did not know the problems which one can come across on a sea voyage. As they were moving towards their destination, a storm hit them and their boat, it began to toss. All passengers, they were calm except that new slave. He started to cry and he started to make a lot of noise when he was looking at the storm. They tried their best to calm him, but he kept on crying. The king did not like this, and he asked a sergeant to quieten him. The sergeant, he took hold of that slave and threw him into the water. He was about to drown when he was saved, and he was pulled back into the boat, and then he sat in the corner quietly. The king was very much surprised, and he asked the sergeant that why this gentleman is quiet now. The sergeant told him that the slave did not realize the safety of the boat till he himself experienced the danger of being drowned. The moral lesson of this story is that no one can realize the worth of safety from the misfortune until it has been tasted. Now we will look at the summary and the moral lesson of Tale 2 from the Gulistan of Saddi. It is a parable about King Noshirwan of Persia, who was famous for his justice. One day, a deer was being roasted for him. The cook, he did not have salt, so he asked a boy to go to a nearby village and get some salt. When the boy came back, he asked if he had paid for it. The boy replied in negative. The king ordered him to go back and pay for the salt, lest it became a custom. When the king was asked what could be the result of just by getting a little salt, he answered that it could lead to a serious problem, so it should be stopped then and there. The king wanted to say that small acts of cruelty, they should be avoided so that they may not become bigger acts of cruelty. The people who do so, they are cursed forever. The moral lessons of this story are: a cruel ruler does not remain in this world, but he is cursed forever. The ruler should always remain fair and just and treat the people without any discrimination. He should love his people and do everything for them. In this way, he will be popular among his subjects. A ruler must be wise and just. If he is unfair towards his people, his subordinates, they will also be cruel to the masses. He should be a role model for his people. If injustice starts from the higher level, it pervades, it trickles down everywhere, and it becomes unstoppable. Now the third parable or the third story from the Gulistan of Saddi. We will look at its summary and the moral lessons. Once a king fell seriously ill and there was no hope for his recovery. The doctor suggested that he can only be cured if some kind of a person is found with certain qualities and the bile of that person is given to the ailing king. Such a person was soon found. He was a young boy. His parents, they agreed to his killing on the payment of great amount of wealth. The Qazi also issued orders to kill him so that their king could be healthy again. When the boy was about to be killed, he smiled. The king asked him the reason for his smile. The boy said that he is smiling because God was with him. Although his parents, the Qazi and the king, they all were after killing him so that the king can be cured, but he knew that God was with him. The king was very much impressed when he heard all this. He kissed that boy and allowed him to go after giving him a lot of wealth. Soon after this great act of kindness, the king recovered by the grace of God. The moral lessons of this story are: it is better to die than to shed the blood of an innocent person. A ruler must not be selfish. He should be God-fearing and he must be kind to his people. And God blesses those who bless human beings. We are going to look at the protagonist of the stories by Saddi. We are going to talk about the character of Noshirwan. Now this king, Nosherwa, he was also known as Nosherwa Adil, someone who is full of justice. He was the king of Persia and he was famous for his justice and for his wisdom. He knew how to maintain law and order in the country. He was very particular that nobody must misuse the name of his authority and for any bad purpose. He was aware of the fact that if he demanded petty things from his subjects, his subordinates and slaves would feel free to carry this on and demand from the masses. He was against all kinds of oppression, cruelty, and injustice. People become usurpers if they are given some powers. They can go to any extent by using unfair means. He was a very clever king and he kept an eye over all the people. He always tried to uproot corruption in the beginning. And he set good examples for others and never allowed anyone to exploit others. He was wise and knew what to do and what not to do.